Hello everyone and welcome back to another challenge video. Today is an exciting one as it's a run on Platinum, my personal favourite Pokemon game. But I don't think this is going to be an easy challenge. Today we find out, can you beat Pokemon Platinum using only baby Pokemon? Baby Pokemon are classified as first form Pokemon that can't breed and are in the undiscovered egg group. There are quite a few Pokemon to choose from in Platinum, as Gen 4 added a slew of new baby Pokemon to the mix. I will mainly be focusing on these Gen 4 baby Pokemon, but there will be a couple of older generation Pokemon scattered in there as well. Before we get started, I'd just like to point out that Mah-Dry-Bread and I both seem to have recorded this challenge at around the same time. This is 100% a coincidence, nobody copied anyone, so let's just get that out of the way. MDB's version of this challenge will be in the description below, so make sure to check it out. As always, there's a couple of rules, so let's speed through these. I can only use baby Pokemon in battle, but HM users are allowed outside of battle. No items in battle, but held items are allowed, as is item usage outside of battle. Let's try and set a like goal for this video. I don't normally ask for likes too much, but I wanted to see if we could hit a goal of 5,000 likes on this video, so
slap like now,
if you haven't already. Alright, without any further ado, let's do this. I start the game and pick the female character. I name her Suniko. This one's a little bit more niche, but comment down below if you get the reference. I name our rival Zwigo because he's got more subs than me, therefore I hate him. I mean, he's a good friend of mine. You should check out our Soul Link series if you haven't done so already. There's a whole bunch of baby Pokemon I could pick as my starter, but some of them are either really rare or can't be found until very late in the game. So I decide to pick one of those and I make my starter a Mantike. Mantike's actually pretty strong, well at least for a baby Pokemon. Its special defense in particular is really impressive, so I'm sure it'll be a great addition to the team as the game progresses. Zwigo immediately challenges us to a battle, and we definitely didn't just lose our first battle. Nope, didn't happen. Let's move on. We get our Pokedex from Professor Rowan and arrive in Jubilife City. If we head north, we can actually already get our next team member, Badoo. I decide to catch it and add it to the team. Badoo's stats are really nothing to write home about, but it'll be useful for spreading status problems at least. Speaking of which, our Badoo actually has the ability Poison Point, which can poison Pokemon on contact. I'd rather have had Natural Cure, but it'll do. We face Zwigo again, and this time we don't lose. Mantike deals with Starly no problem, and we manage to set up a few growths with Badoo on Turtwig and beat it with a few absorbs. We arrive in Orberg City where we can face the first gym leader, rock type user Roark? It's gotta be one of those. Anyway, this fight wasn't particularly difficult as we have a water and grass type on the team. Geodude's out first, so I start with Mantike and one shot with a Bubble Beam. Next out is Onix, so I send out Badoo. He lowers our defense with Screech as we hit and absorb. Despite being 4 times super effective, it still only does about half. We're hit with a Rock Throw, but we tank the hit and one more absorb is enough to knock it out. Roark's final Pokemon is Cranidos, so I swap back into Mantike. We're outsped and hit with a Pursuit, which actually does a decent chunk as we hit back with a Bubble Beam, which almost is enough to one-shot. He uses a potion, but it's not enough to save him from defeat, as one more Bubble Beam finishes it off, winning us the first badge. We arrive in Floroma Town, where Team Galactic are up to no good in the Valley Windworks. We make our way to the leader of this operation, Mars. She wasn't too difficult to beat though. Her Zubat misses a Toxic, so we're able to take it out with 2 Bubble Beams from Mantike without even taking damage. Her last Pokemon is Purugly, which is a little bit more scary. I swap into Badoo so I can go for Stun Spore. We just survive a Fake Out and Scratch and we're able to paralyze it. I hit with a Mega Drain before going down to one more Scratch, so I send out Mantike again. I confuse it with Supersonic and start spamming Bubble Beam. It doesn't take too long before it gets knocked out due to a mixture of Bubble Beam and confusion damage. That went better than expected. We travel to Eterna City, the home of the second gym leader, Gardenia. I don't really fancy my chances just yet, so I think it's time to catch ourselves another Pokemon. I head east to Mount Coronet and look around until we find a Shingling. I've never actually used one of these before, so it'll be interesting to see how good it'll be in the long run. Unlike a lot of baby Pokemon, Shingling can learn some good TMs too, so it should be at least decent. I train it up a few levels and challenge the leader. She leads with Turtwig, so I send out Mantike. I'm able to confuse it and hit a few wing attacks, but unfortunately we're not able to take it out before falling to a few Razor Leafs. I send out Shingling and clean up with the confusion. Next up is Sherem, so I send out Badoo. This thing's only way of attacking me is Magical Leaf, which barely does anything, so I take advantage of this by paralysing it and then setting up a few growths. I then proceed to chip away at its health with Mega Drain until eventually it goes down. Gardenia's final Pokemon is Roserade, so I stay in. Even with the stat boost, Mega Drain hardly does anything, so I decide to paralyse it with Stun Spore. We go down shortly after and I send out our last Pokemon, Shingling. Because of the paralysis, we're able to outspeed it and hit a super effective confusion. It does less than half when we get hit with a Stun Spore. Luckily, Roserade is unable to move next turn and we hit another confusion, which brings it down to red health, but she eats a citrus berry, bringing her back to about 1/4. We get hit with a Magical Leaf, but we survive the hit and one more confusion is all it takes to win us the badge. That was a lot closer than I would have liked. We get the TM for Grass Knot, which I decide to teach to Shingling because Badoo's already got Mega Drain and it's going to be learning a better grass move eventually anyway. Before we can move on, Team Galactic needs seeing to once again. This time we're facing Commander Jupiter. She leads with a Zubat, so I start off with Shingling. We actually outspeed it and one confusion knocks it out thanks to a lucky critical hit. Jupiter's last Pokemon is Skuntank, which is not something Shingling wants to deal with, so I swap into Badoo. We're hit with a Night Slash, but we just hang on and we're able to paralyse it with a Stun Spore. I do a small amount of damage with Mega Drain before fainting to another Night Slash, so I send out Mantike. I confuse it with a Supersonic and she hits herself in confusion. I hit with a Bubble Beam, which does an okay amount of damage, and once again Skuntank hits itself in confusion. But then she eats a Citrus Berry to gain some HP. Another Bubble Beam brings it down to below half as Skuntank snaps out of confusion, but she goes for Poison Gas and misses. Another Bubble Beam brings it down to red health as we're hit with a Night Slash. We live the hit though, so one more takes it out and we win the fight. We're not done in Historia City yet though. We run into Cynthia, who gives us an egg. We cycle around a little bit until it hatches, and inside is a Togepi. I was originally going to use a Cleffa, but I decided to give Togepi a try here instead. Togepi really isn't a good Pokemon, but it learns a lot of moves via TM, so hopefully I can make it work. It also has the ability Serene Grace, which will definitely come in useful with the moves it can learn later on. We travel down the cycle path and through Mount Coronet until we reach Hearthome City. And here we can challenge the third gym leader, Fantina. And we lose, quite badly. Her Mismagius pretty much destroys our entire team. By the time we actually beat it, her Haunter comes out and finishes off our last Pokemon with ease. It was clear that a bit of training was needed, so I grind up a few levels and try again, and this time things go a little bit better. First up is Duskull, so I start with Shingling. We're hit with the Shadow Sneak for decent damage and hit back with the Confusion for just under half. However, we do confuse it. We bring it down to KO range with one more confusion, but get burned by Will-O-Wisp. Fantina uses a Super Potion though, and unfortunately we're not able to take it out before fainting ourselves, so I swap into Mantike and finish it off with a Bubble Beam. Next up is Haunter, so I swap into Badoo and manage to paralyze it with Stun Spore as she misses a Hypnosis. I swap into Togepi and confuse it with a Sweet Kiss, and Haunter hits itself in confusion twice in a row. We have no choice but to rely on Metronome to attack, as our only other attacking move is Return, but of all things, we get the move Odor Sleuth, which makes it so ghost types can be hit by normal type moves. What are the chances of that happening? We can use Return now and it does decent damage, but we end up being put to sleep. Eventually we're able to wake up and hit enough times to take out the Haunter, so it's down to her last Pokemon. That terrifying Mismagius which destroyed the team last time. I switch in Badoo so I can try and paralyze it. We get hit with a Confuse Ray and Psybeam, but we're able to hang on and land a Stun Spore, which is crucial if we want to win this. I try and set up a growth on it, but we go down to a Shadow Ball. I send out Togepi and confuse it with a Sweet Kiss, but unfortunately she still hits a Psybeam and lands a crit, which knocks us out. It's now a one-on-one between Mantike and Mismagius. Bubble Beam does decent damage and Mismagius gets hit in confusion too. We land another one which triggers the Citrus Berry, but she's fully paralysed. We hit another, bringing it down to yellow health as she hits a Shadow Ball. Mantike's special defense really pulls through for us here, but then Shadow Ball lowers our special defense by one stage. This could be bad. I go for one more Bubble Beam, praying that it will be enough, And it isn't. She lives on a tiny amount of HP and hits back with another Shadow Ball, and we survive with just 2 health remaining. I thought for sure she would use a Super Potion here, but she doesn't, so we hit one more Bubble Beam and take it out, finally winning us the 3rd badge. We leave Heart home, but immediately get challenged by Zwigo. It's really not that difficult of a fight though. Staravia's out first, so I send out Shingling. We get hurt quite badly, but we're able to knock it out in a couple of confusions. Next out is Buizel, so I send out Bidoof, and 2 Mega Drains is all it takes to get the knockout. Next up is Ponyta, so I swap into Mantike. We get outsped, but his tackle only does a little bit of damage, so 1 Bubble Beam is enough to 1-hit KO. Zwigo's last Pokemon is Grottle, so we stay in and hit a Wing Attack before fainting to a Razor Leaf. I send out Bidoof and do the classic Stun Spore to Growth True combo. After a bunch of growths, we start spamming Mega Drain until eventually it goes down. We beat Zwigo and move on to Veilstone City. Before facing the gym, we pay a visit to the department store and I buy a few TMs, including the Fire Blast TM which I teach to Togepi and Blizzard which I teach to Mantike. With these new moves at our disposal, I take on the 4th gym leader, Maylene. This gym didn't worry me too much as only one of our members is weak to fighting, but actually it was a difficult fight. First up is Meditite, so I start with Mantike. Her Fake Out and Rock Tomb don't do too much damage, and 2 Wing Attacks take it down. Next up is Machoke, so I swap into Chingling. We outspeed and hit a Confusion which deals a good amount of damage, doing over half. Machoke hits back with a Rock Tomb. We take the hit easily though, but we're now slower than it due to the speed drop. It's not a problem though, as she wastes a turn using Focus Energy, so 1 more Confusion knocks it out. Maylene's final Pokemon is her ace, Lucario. I'm a little bit worried about this thing as its part Steel typing makes our flying and psychic moves not deal super effective damage. I swap into Bidoof so I can paralyze it. We survive a Metal Claw and successfully hit a Stun Spore. Due to good paralysis RNG, we're able to actually hit a lot of weak Mega Drains, almost dealing half of her health before finally going down. I swap into Togepi to go for a Fire Blast, but unfortunately we miss and Lucario one-shots us with Force Palm. I swap into Chingling and hit a Confusion for decent damage as we're hit with another Metal Claw. We live on red health though, so we're able to get 1 more Confusion in, which leaves Lucario on low health. We faint to 1 more Metal Claw though, so I swap into Mantike. I was worried she was going to heal here, but she doesn't, so we outspeed and hit with a Water Pulse, taking out Lucario and winning us the badge. We arrive in Pastoria, say hi to a Croagunk, and find the TM for Toxic. I teach it to Bidoof. I know that we have Poison Point, but Toxic Poison is just overall way more useful than regular poison damage. I also decide to catch a new team member. I wasn't intending on using one originally, but I catch a Pichu in the Trophy Garden. It should definitely come in useful for the next gym. Pichu's stats really are dreadful, but an electric type is always a good thing, right? I train it up a few levels and teach it the TM for Thunder, so we actually have a decently powerful stab move. We go to face the next gym, but we're challenged by our rival once again. He starts with Staravia, so I decide now's a perfect time to test our new Pichu. I try and hit a Thunder, but Staravia goes for Quick Attack, and it's enough to faint us from full health. That's a great example of just how awful Pichu is. I swap into Mantike. We get outsped and hit with a Wing Attack, but we take the hit easily and fire back with a Blizzard, which is enough to actually one-shot Staravia. He decides to send out Ponyta next for some reason, so I stay in. We survive a couple of stomps and 2 Bubble Beams are enough to KO. Next up is his starter Grottle. I stay in and try and hit a Blizzard, but we miss and faint to a Bite. I send out Togepi. Grottle wastes a turn setting up a withdraw and we hit a super effective Fire Blast for great damage. Our ability kicks in and we actually get the burn too. Grottle hits a Mega Drain and thanks to the health he gains, 1 more Fire Blast isn't enough to KO, however the burn damage is enough to seal the deal. Zwigo's final Pokemon is Buizel, so I swap into Bidoof and a couple of Mega Drains is all it takes to win us the fight. Now it's time for the 5th gym leader, Crash Awake, and let me tell you, this gym was absolutely awful. I can't even get past his first Pokemon Gyarados, let alone the rest of his team. So I train up a few more levels and try again. We still can't win though, his Floatzel is really fast and it's just really difficult to deal with. Over the countless failed attempts though, I developed a strategy which does eventually work. First up is Gyarados. I send out Bidoof, whose only job is to paralyze Gyarados with a Stun Spore. We survive a bite and hit back with a Stun Spore. Now I switch into Togepi as he gets fully paralysed. I'm able to hit a critical hit Ancient Power before going down, and now I get a free switch into Pichu, who can now outspeed Gyarados thanks to the paralysis and take it out with the Thunder. Next up is Quagsire. I meant to switch into Budew here, but I misclick and hit Mantike instead. I hit a Blizzard which does a decent amount of damage as we get hit with the super effective Rock Tomb. I live the hit though and now decide to switch into Budew. We take another Rock Tomb easily though and one Mega Drain knocks it out. Crash Awake's final Pokemon is Floatzel. I swap into Pichu. I know we're going to faint before we can do anything, but I'm hoping for Static to take effect. We get one shot and sure enough he gets paralysed by Static, which is essential if we want to win this fight. I send out Budew and hit a Mega Drain, which deals a decent amount of damage. We survive a crunch though, so I decide to swap into Chingling, as I'm expecting an Aqua Jet. We get really lucky and Floatzel gets fully paralysed 3 times in a row, so we can hit a couple of Grass Knots, bringing it down to red health before he heals with a Hyper Potion. We're able to bring it back down all the way to red health again before we finally faint to a crunch. I'm still scared of Aqua Jet, so I decide to swap into Mantike. I was really worried that he was going to heal again, but thankfully he doesn't, so one Bubble Beam is enough to win us the badge. I do genuinely think this was the most difficult gym fight of the run, thank god it's over. We meet with Cynthia who gives us the secret potion, so now we can reach Celeste Town. We visit the ruins and get challenged by Cyrus, the leader of Team Galactic. I wasn't expecting this fight to be difficult, but we actually ended up losing to him quite a few times. His Sneasel outspeeds our entire team and can deal some hefty damage. Even on the runs where we do manage to take it down, we just can't get past his Murkrow. I train up a few more levels and keep trying, and eventually we get the run that we needed. He starts with Sneasel as I lead with Togepi. He obviously outspeeds but decides to go for Screech, so I hit a Fire Blast and we get a lucky critical hit, which takes it out from full health. Next up is Golbat, so I swap into Chingling. We're able to hit one Confusion before fainting in a couple of hits. I swap into Mantike next and go for Blizzard, but we miss. We're hit with a couple of Poison Fangs, but one Blizzard is enough to finish it off. So now it's down to Cyrus' last Pokemon, Murkrow. I send out Pichu, which you might think is a good idea, but we immediately go down to a feint attack. Once again there, Pichu showing off just how useless it is. I swap into Togepi and land a Sweet Kiss, and we get really lucky with him hitting himself in Confusion and us getting a critical hit Ancient Power. So we're able to finish it off pretty quickly. We finally beat Cyrus and get the HM for Surf, so we can move on to Canele City. Before we can progress to the 6th gym though, we actually have to face Wiggo once again. And this is where we hit yet another roadblock. His team is all fully evolved at this point and he's genuinely tough. We don't really have anything to beat his Heracross in particular, so I decide it's time to add a 6th member to the team. I travel all the way to the Fuego Ironworks and catch a Magmar. I put it in the daycare with a Mr. Mime and just wait for them to get it on. We hatch the egg and inside is a Magby. In terms of stats, Magby is head and shoulders above the rest of the team. It's pretty fast and has some decent attacking stats too. I train it up a few levels and we attempt the rival fight again, and this time it goes much better. First up is Staraptor, so I send out Togepi. He sets up a double team, but that really isn't a problem. We confuse it with Sweet Kiss and he hits himself in Confusion, and then we get a lucky crit Ancient Power and it's enough to KO. Next up is Heracross, so I send out Budew. I know this is a questionable choice, but this thing's only job is to paralyze it. We survive an Aerial Ace with red health and hit back with a Stun Spore. I land a Giga Drain, which I recently learnt via TM, but unsurprisingly it really doesn't do much damage at all. Budew goes down to one more hit, so I send out Chingling, and once again our luck is unreal. We get a critical hit Confusion, and then he gets fully paralysed, meaning we can take it out with one more Confusion. Next up is Floatzel, so I send out Pichu. I try and paralyze it, but as always, Pichu faints without doing anything, except this time our static ability does kick in, so at least Pichu wasn't completely useless. I swap back into Chingling, and once again thanks to good luck, we're able to take it out in 2 Grass Knots without him damaging us. Next out is his fully evolved starter Torterra. I swap into our new Pokemon Magby and start hitting Lava Plumes. Thanks to our Flame Body ability burning it, we're able to take it out in 3 hits despite being hit with Leech Seed. It's down to his last Pokemon Rapidash. I swap into Mantike and we're able to take it out with a mixture of Surf and his takedown's recoil damage, winning us the battle. We go through Iron Island with Riley and clear out Team Galactic. Before we leave, Riley gives us an egg, and inside this egg will actually be our final team member. I know what you're probably thinking.
But Plonker Boy, you already have 6 Pokemon.
Well yeah, that's true, but let's be honest, one member in particular really hasn't been pulling its weight. One member has been practically useless, so you guessed it, we're saying goodbye to Pichu. You won't be missed. The egg hatches and inside is our final team member, Riolu. It may not have the stats of a Lucario, but I think it will make a fine addition to the team. I train up Riolu a few levels and face the 6th gym leader Byron. His first Pokemon is Magneton, so I start with Magby. We hit a flamethrower which almost takes it out and burns it. We're hit with a Thunderbolt which we survive with just 1 HP remaining. He uses a Hyper Potion, but one more flamethrower and the burn damage is enough to knock it out. Next up is Steelix. I stay in and hit another flamethrower. It does a lot of damage but not enough to KO, and he goes for an Earthquake to finish us off. I swap into Mantike and knock it out with a Surf, and now it's down to his final Pokemon, Bastiodon. I heard that he really loves that Pokemon.
I love Bastiodon!
I stay in and hit another Surf, which does about half before he heals with a Citrus Berry. He hits back with a Stone Edge though, which is enough to one-hit KO Mantike. Bastiodon is... So I swap into Chingling and go for Grass Knot, but it doesn't do anywhere near as much as I was expecting. We hit a couple more Grass Knots, leaving it on red health before we go down to a couple of Stone Edges. I try to finish it off with our level 20 Riolu, but he fully heals with a Hyper Potion and we go down shortly after. I swap into Bidoof, paralyze it and set up some growths. After raising our special attack a lot, Giga Drain is enough to knock it out in 2 hits, winning us the 6th badge. Team Galactic are up to no good once again, and it's our job to stop them. We face off against the 3rd commander, Saturn. He's really not too difficult though. To be honest, none of the commanders are, so I'll skip over them. We travel up north to Snowpoint City, where we can face the 7th gym leader, Ice-type user Candice. I wasn't expecting this gym to be difficult as we have Magby and Riolu on the team, but actually it took a few tries. Her Frostlass in particular was a real pain to deal with. Many tries later though, and we finally get a good run. First up is Sneasel, so I start with Togepi. We manage to hit a Fire Blast before going down, which deals good damage. I swap into Mantike and take a feint attack and then finish it off with a Surf. Next up is Piloswine. I swap into Bidoof and hit a Giga Drain for decent damage, but we go down to 1 Earthquake. I swap back into Mantike and 1 Surf is all it takes to knock it out. Next up is Abomasnow. I've learnt from previous attempts that Abomasnow can actually survive a Fire Punch from Magby, so I swap into Chingling first. Abomasnow always uses Wood Hammer on it, which deals recoil damage. We don't survive the hit, but that's not a problem as the damage that she deals to herself is enough to where Magby can come in and one-shot with a Fire Punch. It's down to Candice's last Pokemon, Frostlass. I stay in and go for Confuse Ray. We're outsped but we survive a Shadow Ball and we're able to confuse it. Frostlass hits itself the next turn and Flamethrower does a lot of damage, bringing it down below half even after she heals with the Citrus Berry. We get very lucky and Frostlass hits itself again, so 1 more Flamethrower is enough to win us the badge. We've got more Team Galactic shenanigans to deal with. But first I teach Chingling some new TMs, specifically the ones for Shockwave, Shadow Ball and Psychic. I also teach Bidoof the move Sludge Bomb and Magby the move Brick Break. We infiltrate Team Galactic's base and face off against Cyrus once again, and let me tell you, he quickly became the bane of my existence. I was struggling to beat him this time and I knew full well that soon I'd have to beat him again with an even stronger team. After so many attempts, we finally managed to beat him. Sneasel goes down to 1 Drain Punch from Riolu, and Crobat goes down to 2 Psychics from Chingling, thanks to a critical hit. Honch goes out last, and eventually we take it down with Mantike's Blizzard. I know that may seem very quick and anticlimactic, but trust me, we're going to be having a much worse fight with him very soon. Saturn was easy as usual, so now we have to stop Cyrus at the top of Mount Coronet. We travel through the Distortion World, which by the way is one of my least favourite areas in this entire game, and we finally meet up with Cyrus once again. I don't know why I decided that it would be a good idea to try this battle at my current level, but put it this way, I couldn't even get past his first Pokemon, Houndoom. I thought Mantike could easily deal with it, but yep, Thunderfang. He sweeps our entire team, and not just once either, so I have no choice but to grind. The team's a lot more buffed up now, so I'm feeling slightly more confident. And we still can't win. Magby can easily deal with Houndoom, but that's not even his strongest Pokemon. His Gyarados sometimes wrecks us, sometimes it's his Crobat, and sometimes it's his Honchkrow. We still need to train even more. I grind up some more, and now finally we're able to beat him. Even if we are a little over leveled, but come on, we're using baby Pokemon here. Houndoom is out first and Mantike is able to beat it with a Surf thanks to him using Will-O-Wisp instead of Thunderfang. Next up is Gyarados, so we swap into Togepi. We survive a Waterfall and hit back with a Sweet Kiss. Gyarados hits itself in confusion and we hit an Ancient Power for okay damage. We actually get the stat boost too. Gyarados hits itself again and Ancient Power is almost enough to knock it out, but unfortunately Cyrus uses a full restore. We hit one more ancient power, and thanks to the stat boost we gained earlier, we survive a second waterfall, and confuse Gyarados once again. Unfortunately, Gyarados is able to hit through confusion though, and takes out Togepi. I swap into Chingling. Gyarados hits itself once again, and we're able to finish it off with a Shockwave. Next up is Honchkrow, so I swap back into Mantike and go for Blizzard. We outspeed but miss, and get hit with the Drill Peck. We hang on though, and this turn we don't miss, and Blizzard is actually enough to one-hit KO. Mantike does faint to the burn damage though. I don't know who he's going to send out next, so I take a gamble and send out Chingling. And this was a mistake, because he sends out Weavile next. I switch out and go into Magby, who takes a Night Slash. Unfortunately though, it does more than half and we get outsped, meaning we faint to one more. I swap in Riolu and get hit with an Ice Punch. We live the hit though and fire back with the Drain Punch, which is 4 times super effective, so needless to say, it's enough to KO. Cyrus' last Pokemon is Crobat, so I swap into Chingling. Crobat hits us with a Toxic, but that doesn't matter, a Psychic is enough to take out Crobat from full health. We finally beat Cyrus for the last time. I'm not exaggerating this when I say this was probably one of the worst fights in the entire game. We KO Giratina and move on to Sunyshore City, the home of the final gym leader Volkner. While not as bad as Wake, this was actually still a close fight. He leads off with Jolteon, so I start with Chingling. We get outsped and paralysed with a Thunder Wave as we hit back with a Psychic for about half. We live a Charge Beam with ease, and one more Psychic is enough to finish it off. Raichu is out next. I send out Magby and outspeed it, hitting a Flamethrower. It does just less than half, but we do get the burn. We survive a Focus Blast and we're able to finish it off next turn with one more Flamethrower with the help of the burn damage. Next out is his ace, Electivire, and this thing is scary. I stay in and confuse it with Confuse Ray. He hits himself in confusion, and next turn we hit a Flamethrower for good damage. He eats a Citrus Berry though and takes us out with one Thunder Punch. I send out Chingling. We get outsped obviously and get hit with the Thunder Punch. We survive the hit with just 5 health remaining and hit back with a Psychic, which brings Electivire down to a sliver. He uses a full restore to fully heal him and we get fully paralysed before going down to a quick attack. I swap in Togepi and get hit with a Thunder Punch. We get paralysed but we're able to confuse it with a Sweet Kiss. Electivire hits itself in confusion and we're able to hit a Fire Blast for good damage thanks to Chingling's Psychic lowering his special defense. Electivire snaps out of confusion and finishes Togepi off with a Fire Punch, so I swap into Bidoof, who gets instantly KO'd by a Fire Punch. Not my smartest move, but Poison Point does take effect. I swap in Riolu and we get hit with a huge Giga Impact, but we actually survive and finish it off with the Drain Punch. Volkner's last Pokemon is Luxray, so I stay in, outspeed and hit with the Drain Punch for about half thanks to a critical hit. I think because we were on low health initially, Luxray decides to go for Crunch, so we actually survive the hit and we're able to get one more Drain Punch in before going down to a Fire Fang. It's down to my last Pokemon, Mantike. If we get outsped here, there is no way we're living a 4 times super effective electric move. I go for Surf, and we're faster. Surf is enough to finish it off, winning us the 8th and final gym badge. We make our way through Victory Road and arrive at the Pokemon League. Before we can face the Elite Four though, we have to face Wiggo one more time. But he wasn't actually that difficult to beat this time. He leads off with Staraptor, so I send out Magby. We're faster than it and Fire Blast is almost a one-shot, but he lives on red health and hits back with a close combat for decent damage. He gets burned by our Flame Body ability though, but lives with a Sliver. He doesn't actually heal though, so we finish it off with a Flamethrower. Next up is Floatzel, so I send out Bidoof. We take an Ice Fang with health to spare and fire back with a Giga Drain for massive damage. Thanks to the health we regained, we're just able to live one more Ice Fang and finish off Floatzel with another Giga Drain. Rapidash is up next, so I swap into Mantike. He goes for Sunny Day, which weakens our Surf, but it doesn't matter as we get a lucky critical hit for the one-shot. Next up is Heracross, so I swap into Magby to take advantage of the Sunny Day and hit with a powered up Flamethrower, which is enough to KO. Next out is his starter Torterra, so I stay in and hit another Flamethrower, which is also enough to one-hit KO. Zwiggo's final Pokemon is Snorlax, so I swap into Riolu. Drain Punch hits for about 50% as we get hit with a Body Slam. Thankfully we don't get paralysed though, so we hit one more Drain Punch, which is enough to knock out Snorlax for the win. Here's a quick look at the team, and I'm actually pretty happy with it overall. I don't think Cynthia is going to be beatable at this level, but we'll give it a go anyway. Alright, it's Elite Four time. First up is bug user Aaron. And he was actually really easy. Magby sweeps his entire team pretty much, with the exception of Drapion, who goes down to a Surf and Hydro Pump from Mantike. Talk about an easy win.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Next up is Bertha, and this one wasn't too bad either, as we have a water and grass type on the team. First up is Better Swampert, so I start with Bidoof. Whiscash is 4 times weak to grass, so 2 Giga Drains are enough to take it out, and all it did was set up a Sandstorm. Next up is Gliscor, so I stay in and try and paralyze it, but we faint to 1 Earthquake before we can attack. I send out Chingling, and thanks to our Levitate ability, she can't use Earthquake, so we're able to knock it out in a couple of Psychics before taking too much damage. Next up is Hippowdon. Hippowdon is
The thick-ass board!
So I stay in and hit with a Grass Knot for huge damage before we faint to a Stone Edge. I swap into Mantike and finish it off with a Surf. Bertha's final 2 Pokemon, Golem and Rhyperior, are both 4 times weak to water, so they both get 1 hit KO by Surf, winning us the second battle relatively easily. This is where things go a little bit wrong though. Next is Flint, the fire user. I thought this fight would be easy thanks to Mantike, but no, there is just no way I can beat him at our current level. We beat Houndoom relatively easily, but his next Pokemon Infernape absolutely destroys the entire team. I try again, and this time I managed to take out Infernape, only to be completely swept by his Magmortar. I knew I wasn't going to win this fight at my current level, so I did some grinding, bringing my team all the way up to their mid to late 60s and try again. The grinding paid off as things went much better this time. Houndoom is out first, so I send out Magby. We get hit with a Dark Pulse, which ends up doing a fair amount of damage, but a few Brick Breaks take it out after he uses a full restore. Next up is that Infernape again, so I swap into Chingling, and thanks to our high level we can now take a Flare Blitz. He does a lot of damage to himself in recoil, and Psychic is enough to take it out from there. Next up is Flareon, so I switch in Mantike. We get hit with a weak Quick Attack and retaliate with a Hydro Pump. We get a critical hit for the knockout, but I think it would have been enough regardless. Next up is Magmortar, so I swap into Magby. I get an insane streak of luck. We confuse it with Confuse Ray, he hits himself in Confusion, then we get a critical hit Brick Break. He eats a Citrus Berry, but then he hits himself in Confusion again, meaning that another Brick Break is enough to take it out. I don't know why, but I find it so funny how a Magby completely destroyed its fully evolved form. Flint's final Pokemon is Rapidash, so I swap back into Mantike. He decides to start charging Solar Beam, so we hit a Surf, which is enough to take it out from full health thanks to another critical hit. We beat Flint in a very lucky yet convincing win, and move on to Lucian, the final member of the Elite Four. This guy wasn't too bad, but it was a close fight. He leads off with Mr. Mime, so I send out Magby. I confuse it and hit a Flamethrower as he sets up Reflect and Light Screen, which I negate with Brick Break. I go for another Flamethrower, but he decides to swap in Gallade. I get a lucky crit as well, which brings it to just about half health after a Citrus Berry. I confuse it and hit a Fire Blast, which leaves it on a Sliver, and we get lucky yet again as he hits himself in Confusion, knocking himself out. That was one of his biggest threats, so I'm glad it's out of the way early. Next up is Bronzong, so I stay in and hit a Flamethrower. It does a lot of damage, but it's not quite enough to KO, as we get hit with a super effective Earthquake. Bronzong's not really known for his offense though, so we're able to survive, and one more Flamethrower is enough to KO. Next out is the Mr. Mime again. I stay in and hit with a Flamethrower, burning it in the process, before fainting to a Psychic. I swap into Chingling expecting a full restore, but instead he decides to go for Thunderbolt. We're able to take the hit and faint Mr. Mime with a Shadow Ball. Next up is Espeon, so I stay in, however we're not able to live a Shadow Ball, so I send out Mantike. Thanks to our special defense being so high, Psychic doesn't do that much, and we're able to hit a Surf for good damage. We take another Psychic, and I risk going for Hydro Pump this time, as Surf won't be enough to KO. Thankfully we don't miss, and Espeon goes down. Lucian's final Pokemon is Alakazam. I swap into Togepi, and thankfully he misses a Focus Blast and we're able to confuse it with a Sweet Kiss. He hits the Focus Blast this time though, and Togepi is not surviving that. I know it's risky, but I swap into Bidoof. I get very lucky and he hits himself in Confusion, allowing us to paralyze it with Stun Spore, and I think that's what won us this fight. I'm able to hit a Sludge Bomb for decent damage before fainting to a Psychic. I swap into Riolu and we're able to outspeed thanks to him being paralysed. We get a critical hit Shadow Claw for the knockout, winning us the final battle of the Elite Four. But now it's time for Cynthia, and let me tell you, this fight was not easy. I lost so many times to her. The main issue here was actually Milotic. It's really bulky and can beat most of my team with ease. And on the one occasion we do get past it, her Garchomp completely wipes the floor with us. It was clear that I wasn't going to be winning this fight without even more grinding. I train up my team all the way to roughly level 75 to 80 and try again. First up is Spiritomb, so I start with Magby. We take a Dark Pulse with ease and 2 Flamethrowers take it out. Next up is that god-awful Milotic, so I swap into Chingling. I get a decently strong Grass Knot in, but she goes for Mirror Coat, which is enough to take us out from full health. I swap into Badoo, and I'm pretty sure she went for another Mirror Coat because we're able to outspeed and 1 Giga Drain finishes it off, probably thanks to that critical hit. Next up is Togekiss, who was another pain to deal with in past runs. I send out Magby and confuse it with Confuse Ray. She hits herself in confusion and we hit a Flamethrower and then we get a burn. Togekiss snaps out of confusion and hits a big Water Pulse on us. But we're able to survive, and thanks to the burn damage, 1 more Flamethrower is enough to take it out, after we go down to a Shockwave. I send out Togepi, and Cynthia sends out the terrifying Garchomp. This does not seem like a fair matchup. I try to land a Sweet Kiss, but we get one-shot by a crit Dragon Rush, no surprise there. My one true counter to Garchomp is Mantike. I send it out and go for Blizzard. We get hit with another Dragon Rush, but Mantike actually survives and Blizzard hits, knocking out Garchomp in 1 hit. Thank God that's out the way. Next up is Lucario, so I swap into Riolu. We're hit with an Aura Sphere, but we survive and hit back with a Drain Punch, which is almost enough to 1-hit KO. We heal back a lot of our HP too. Lucario gets fully healed by a full restore, and we bring it back down to red health with another Drain Punch. I try and finish it off, but she actually switches into Roserade and our Drain Punch hardly does anything. I need Riolu for Lucario, so I swap into Mantike. We actually survive an extra sensory, but we get outsped and KO before we can attack next turn. I swap into Badoo and we're actually somehow faster than it and able to paralyze it with Stun Spore. We get hit with an extra sensory, but we survive the hit, allowing us to get some good damage in with Sludge Bomb before going down. It's my last Pokemon, Riolu, versus her last 2 Pokemon. Riolu outspeeds and I go for Strength, and luckily for me it's enough to KO. So now it's the final showdown of Riolu versus Lucario. We only have 1 more Drain Punch left, so if she fully heals, we could be in trouble. She doesn't end up healing though, and goes for Aura Sphere instead. She doesn't crit, so we survive and finish it off with our last Drain Punch. We beat Cynthia, and beat Pokémon Platinum using only baby Pokémon. This challenge was actually a lot more difficult than I expected. We had a few good members, but as you might imagine, baby Pokémon are just really bad. Magby was unquestionably the best team member, but then I expected as much as it has the best stats overall. Mantike, Shingling and Badoo were all solid team members, and special mention has to go to Togepi. I didn't have much faith in it, but it actually ended up being really useful. I hope you enjoyed watching this challenge. Again, make sure to watch Mah-Dry-Bread's run of this challenge too if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really sorry for the lack of uploads recently. I've had some real life stuff get in the way and I've been quite busy. But I've got more challenges already in the works, so you can expect to see those in the near future. One of these is actually my very first Sword and Shield challenge video, which you really won't want to miss. Again, thank you so much for your continued patience and support. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video and comment down below with what challenge I should take on next. I'm trying to avoid solo runs, so make sure there's something a bit different. That's all from me, so once again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.